Are you a fan of the Mommy Wines podcast? Well, of course you are, or you wouldn't be hearing this right now. One of the best ways to support the show you love, besides obviously tuning in every Wine Wednesday for new episodes, is shopping the Mommy Wines merch store on teespring.com. This is where you'll find all of the Mommy Wines branded goodness, mugs to hold your coffee over cardio morning Java, iPhone and Samsung cases, premium ultra soft hoodies perfect for upcoming cooler months, and of course, flowy tees and tanks flattering on every mommy out there. Go shop the Mommy Wine storefront on teespring.com and make sure to use code WINEMOM for free shipping. Hey, Wine Moms, and thank you for listening to this MW Network and Emadon production. Now available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, themommywines.com, and wherever else you get your favorite podcasts. For exclusive content and early access, make sure to tune in on Patreon. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Mommy Wines podcast. I am your host, as always, Emma Dawn, and in today's episode, I am switching things up a little bit, getting a new perspective. I have a yoga posing, self-care loving, mental health focused Navy vet dad of two joining me on the pod today. He can be found at Fatherhood Wellness Journey on IG, and he's also known as David Titus. Hopefully, I did not butcher your last name.
No, that was absolutely perfect.
Awesome. And you might hear my dog in the background. I just rescued a chocolate doodle, and she's being a little whiny. So, how are you? What is, going on? What's new?
Yeah, no, I'm doing really well. This whole coronavirus, everybody shutting down everywhere is it's been an adventure so far. I actually live on a Navy base out in Virginia, and so they're like talking about like shutting everything down and not letting anybody leave or go, and
oh god,
home the last week, and so it's who knows when and where we'll be next week.
Well, I know all of the information is coming in minute by minute, but if anybody gets information first, maybe I would think it would be you.
I don't know, maybe
Maybe.
The Navy tends to do its own thing.
Well, it's been working, at least for now.
Yeah.
So you share so much inspirational content, just fatherhood and parenting content on your Instagram. What kind of inspired that? Because I don't see a lot of other dads kind of embracing that. It's just been this whole mom bubble that I've been in.
No, and so I've definitely experienced a bit of that bubble. There's probably like 20 or 30 other dads that I interact with regularly on Instagram, but it's like the same 30 people all talk and like work together and talk together and all share each other's podcasts, and it's a very small like niche.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because I really think that more men need that kind of inspiration and that kind of sense of community. As for what has inspired me to start sharing all of this is I have been married the last like 4 years. I probably back in November asked for a divorce, and right around that same, it all came about kind of the same process of just healing and figuring out, what we needed to do to be the best, we could be, and that happened to be not together. But if you see on my Instagram, I actually share a lot of her content. Like, we're still very supportive of each other. But it came at a culmination of I stopped taking care of myself. And I was stuck in the same grind. I feel like most of us get into, of thinking like, oh, got to do the job, trying to do school at the same time, raising two small kids. And I stopped taking care of myself. I falsely thought that it was, selfish to take that time away from, my kids, by doing something for me. And like the result was a pretty, unhappy, extremely unhealthy, person most of the time. And it definitely kind of boiled up at about, let's say, October of last year. I ended up actually checking myself into mental rehab because I was having some very physical manifestations of my inner stress.
Are you a fellow mom looking to make a legitimate professional income around your lifestyle? If so, then I hope you consider enrolling in my new Home Bookkeeper Masterclass. This class has everything I personally used to build and scale my very own bookkeeping business from the comforts of home. Freelance is the future, and with today's cloud-based programs and technology, you have the ability to work whenever and wherever you wish. Included in the Home Bookkeeper Masterclass are all the insights on building, branding, and marketing your very own bookkeeping business, a pro advisor study guide to help you pass the optional and free QuickBooks Online certification exam, and a business resource guide full of all of my favorite products that I use at EDJ Consulting, plus a free gift just for you. To check out the Home Bookkeeper and enroll in the online masterclass, visit www.emmadon.com. I was just listening to this TED Talk, and I brought it up on a podcast a while back, but I was listening to this other podcast, and this doctor was on, and he was talking about how mental health is such a stronger concern today, and how anxiety and stress, and with everything going on, the world is just so much more polluted with drama and TV and cell phones and social media and all this stuff going on. Yeah, but like
everything's complicated.
There's situations where like people are like thinking that they're having like a heart attack, people are going blind, rashes, hives, all kinds of things, and it's all your body's reaction to, like, he called it an overdose of stress.
100%. I actually, there was a few days where I would have driven to work and I wouldn't have remember. I wouldn't remember that I drove to work. I was like missing like chunks of my day, and kind of the last straw was I was on a business trip. I travel quite a bit for work still, out to California, and while I was on my way there, I ended up blacking out and collapsing on the airplane.
Oh my God.
Woke up to the, oxygen mask on and everybody panicking, and it was definitely something needs to change. I feel like that happens a lot. Most of the people I see on these different wellness blogs and things like that, something happened that generally sparked that turnaround for them.
Oh yeah. That's like the one common denominator when it comes to people who seem to just really embrace the well-being of, their mind and mental health. There's just like something that happens and it kind of like smacks you into reality a little bit.
Yeah, life sat me down.
Literally on an airplane.
Literally on an airplane. 30,000 feet. It was great. So,
oh my God, that would be so terrifying. I think not only like just kind of blacking out for a second, but I think the panic of like everyone around you when you were waking up, like I think that would freak me out more than the passing out.
Yeah, it was definitely an experience. I was actually landing, I was flying from Baltimore and I was landing in Salt Lake City. And my brother works at the airport there.
Oh, yeah.
And so luckily, once I landed, there was a familiar face there to kind of hang out with and relax for a bit before I, went anywhere else. So it was life had sat me down, and so I decided to, go to mental rehab, and it was the turning point for me, where I kind of had my head lifted up out of the clouds and was like, hey, you need to make some drastic changes in your life. And that's what's kind of set me on this journey. I didn't expect when I started the Fatherhood Wellness Journey page on Instagram that I was going to get like 50 people, whoever wanted to hear or follow it. But since January, it's grown pretty exponentially, and it's kind of shocked me. And I think it's ever more apparent how needed it is for people to have a voice, for them to recognize, what's going on in their lives, and hopefully inspire some people to not have to collapse on an airplane before they start making some changes in their life.
Yeah. I remember when I first moved to Salt Lake, I was going through custody court and there was so much drama. If I have any kind of co-parenting relationship with my son's dad at all, it's toxic. And so you're very lucky that you guys are trying to do the best you can and have like a greater picture, in your mind for your mission. But I was at a client's house and I passed out. I thought I was having like a heart attack,
Yeah.
and I was trying to just like get through it and just, figure it out later, because that's what I do. I just push things aside. And as I'm walking out of the house, I just collapse, totally pass out. I go to the hospital and they're like, okay, well, testing me, everything, hooking me up to all kinds of machines. And they're like, well, you didn't have a heart attack. You're probably just having a panic attack. And that's kind of when I started like looking into being like, okay, maybe I need to get back on track. Maybe I need to start, taking things a bit more serious. And it's scary for sure. But I feel like with so many distractions in like today's world, there's so many, like your mind is just going 110 miles an hour all the time. And especially like if you're anything like me and you just like, you're okay putting more and more and more on your plate. You're like, okay,
Yeah,
I'll
we
sleep
think
when
we
I'm
can,
done.
or we
I'll
think we
take a
have
break.
to.
Right.
At that kind of peak of stuff, I was going to school for full time. I was working full time. I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. Trying to manage an unhappy marriage, and on the other side of the country from where any of our family lived. And I traveled almost 4 or 5 months out of the year last year. And that's been kind of the norm for me. And so with all of that going on at the same time, you think you got to put on a show, like you said, like you were like, okay, having a panic attack, I might die, but I don't want anybody to think I'm dying. So
Exactly.
I'm just going to pretend like everything's okay until I get outside. And we do that. We try to hide it. We try to make it through, because heaven forbid we're not okay.
Yeah.
It's hard, and I am very fortunate. It's probably only been the last like 2 or 3 weeks, actually, that Jennifer, who's my kid's mom, have kind of been on better terms. There's definitely I'd say it wasn't a surprise when I finally said that I wanted to get separated. When I realized that both of us would be better off not together anymore. And I think it was a long time coming. Just neither person really wanted to be the one to do it.
Yeah.
I've
luckily never been married. So I couldn't
Yeah,
even imagine what that would
it's
be like.
yeah, it's been a ride. We lived together for the last few months, and they actually just moved to California, probably about 3 weeks ago now. And so I think in those 3 weeks, we've both come really far in our interaction with each other, and finally being able to breathe and realize that that was the best option. And that's hard for people. For a long time, I was like, I was holding on to this idea that I don't want my kids to have parents who are divorced.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I have to stay because of that. And then, while I was in rehab, they kind of helped me understand. It's like, well, do you want your kids to not have divorced parents, or do you want your kids to grow up with a false perception of what a relationship should be like? Um, and that was kind of one of those, I guess, freeing or releasing moments that I was like, you know what? I'd much rather them have happy, healthy parents, even if nobody quite understands what I do now. Um, that, in the end, I hope it kind of plays out that way. And I think so far it has. And I'm very grateful that we're on the same page as far as the kids go. Because I know that that's not something that many people have. Um,
It definitely is not.
Attention! Calling all wine moms. With the amount of wine and coffee I drink, my teeth started to look a little dull and dingy. However, I found the fastest and most affordable solution that makes my pearly whites sparkle, and that is Active Well. Active Well has everything you need to maintain a shining smile: whitening kits, toothpaste, on the go pens, and so much more. Use code MOMMYWINES20 at checkout when you try the premium or natural charcoal whitening goodies from ActiveWell. Available on Amazon, Target, or ActiveWow.com. Make sure to use code MOMMYWINES20.
But yeah, I can only imagine that it would take time for those, just like emotions and feelings and like just, it's a big life change to kind of just settle into place.
yeah, you
But
don't have two kids with somebody and like things just go away easily.
yeah, you're like,
Or
okay, well, see you
it's like, oh,
later.
yeah, it doesn't really work out that way. Um, but I am very excited for her to be happy, and but that's her thing now, and I think that's really really hard for a lot of people, to be able to do, kind of separate those boundaries, I guess, which is not something I practiced very well the last few years. um, but along with kind of going through therapy and stuff, there were actually two really great books that kind of helped steer me in the right direction mentally, and it's not all stuff that we don't know. I think one of the the big things about all this wellness stuff and, um, self-care, and it's not a surprise, it's not a crazy concept to somebody that you tell them if they take better care of themselves, they'll have more energy or they'll be happier. It's not like that's a shock to people.
Oh, it's
um,
not. But it's like one of the things, especially as parents, we do last.
yeah, and it's, I don't know where that comes from, like what stops us, or what is it that we're taught that makes us think that self-sacrifice is the better option, when in reality, I realize setting a better example to my kids, like taking care of myself, like prioritizing my self-care, being healthy, um, having healthy boundaries, it's a far better example than self-sacrificing to the point of exhaustion and misery.
Yeah. Well, if you go back to your playing experience,
They always say on an airplane, oh, if there's ever a problem, put your mask on first.
100%. That's been the
But
perfect kind of like mantra for me during this time because of that experience.
but like I feel like when especially parents, like when you have a little baby, you just give so much energy that like I remember as a new mom and a new parent, like I was just exhausted. And now like I've recently started working out again, and in the beginning I felt a little bit guilty because I was coming home and I was leaving my son at daycare for like an extra hour in the day just so I could have
Yeah.
like the distraction free time to work out. And in the beginning, like I don't know why, but I felt so guilty.
Oh yeah.
And
No, I feel
but
you.
I've kind of like talked myself out of that because I was like, okay, well, I just need to mentally and emotionally and physically just be better than I have been. And if it means him playing with other kids for an extra hour a day, like it's not going to kill him.
No, 100%. And that's really been huge for me is I've over the last few months, I've felt the best mentally and physically and emotionally that I have in years. And I know that because I changed that perception that self-care was taking away from my time with the kids. In reality, taking that extra hour means that the other hours that you do have with them is the quality, factor goes way up because you feel better, about yourself. So you have more energy, you have more to give to them.
That is true. That is something I noticed because before I would leave work and I would rush to his daycare, pick him up, and then come home. And then we would just be like cleaning or cooking or whatever. And he would just be watching cartoons or playing with toys by himself. But now that I've kind of taken that little bit of extra time, I've come home, I've worked out, I've, done a few things around the house, and then I go pick him up. When we're home now, I'm able to play with him and, we can do things more together than him just sitting and watching cartoons or playing with toys.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Warmer weather is just around the corner. So make sure to stock up on all your shorts, tees, and tanks from Zaya Active. Zaya has something for the whole family with the always popular and growing men's collection and even new kids and junior sizes. As always, you'll find your favorite premium leggings with new items being made from recycled water bottles. I just picked up the purple bomber bra and it is so soft and I swear the quality might even be better than the original. Shop the Mommy Wines podcast event on myzaya.com/Emadan for your order number to be automatically entered into a spring raffle. For your chance to win, head over to myzaya.com/Emadan today.
These books that I was reading that I feel like were also kind of key in that perception change for me. One of them, it's probably made the biggest impact over the last few months, is a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And if you are a man or woman or anybody listening to this podcast, definitely go check that book out, because it gives the most accurate perception of the inner workings of a man's mind, and especially as kind of the title says, self-proclaimed nice guys. And I had so many false perceptions about, by the way, as a disclaimer, not being a nice guy doesn't mean being an asshole.
No, I'm interested in this book because I feel like men are just this weird, strange alien thing to me. I'm like, they're so frustrating because I'm like, okay, why aren't you getting it? Or what am I not getting about you? Like, I'm interested.
Oh,
If there's a book out there that's going to tell me the inner workings of a male brain, bring it on.
it explained so much to even myself. Like it definitely was like an emotional marathon reading it every day. And it was one of those like, wow, I kind of feel personally attacked right now. How does
But you're
this
like
person
secretly, you're like, okay, it's true.
Yeah, no, 100%. And what was incredible about it is I was like, how, alone we feel in the way we think or like what we're going through. But for this book, No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover was not only was it eye-opening for me, but like it helped me understand that there's thousands and thousands of other men who have that same mentality or these perceptions in their head that are, kind of ingrained into us. And one of the things that I hope to kind of get the message out on, on my Instagram page is, it's okay to, embrace your masculinity, and that it's okay to, have all these feelings, and these are why you have all these behaviors and do all these different things, and how you can kind of break through some of those to be a overall better human being in life. And it was definitely a shock, and I see it a lot. There's not really, like we said at the beginning of the podcast, not really a market for men, empowering men to be healthy.
Yeah, one of the things that like really like struck me when I came across your Instagram profile is you don't normally see, like Navy vet and mental health put in the same thing, or like masculine and self-care. Like those are some words that you don't typically see going together.
Yep, some solid dichotomies in life. And it's so difficult, and I feel empathetic to a lot of the guys out there who, they're just angry. They have all these, inner things that they need to work on, but I
They're
think
a
not a
man,
lot.
so they won't.
Yeah, there's not a lot of credit due to some of the things that are forced upon, some of these perceptions that are forced on men as as they're growing up. And that book kind of tackles a lot of it, about where we receive our sense of value from, how we get our value from women, in particular, and this culture in general, over the last 50 years, boys don't really have a lot of healthy role models, and they didn't grow up being taught by their dads because their dads worked all day. They didn't have a lot of healthy male role models in their life, and so we grew up with a lot of different perceptions that were kind of false, and we need to kind of get back to. It kind of impacted me a lot too, because I always thought that I was different, solid massive quotes around different than other guys. I kind of prided myself on being sensitive and emotional and loving to go get manicures and pedicures, and just being not what I thought was an asshole, or like every other guy out there. And then you kind of hear the term all the time, nice guys finish last. You have all these guys who talk about the friend zone, and why don't girls like me? I'm so nice, I'm so sensitive. And it's all this weird perception. That book kind of tackles a lot of those different things, and it's it's not about, nice guys or being a, good person. Means you're not lovable. It's because generally those nice guys aren't generally very nice. They're very inherently, they're liars. They're
Yeah, it's like not genuine.
yeah, it's not genuine. They're trying to cover up like who they are to people please, and thinking that they're so different, and then they, in turn, when a woman rejects them, then they get angry and mean and malicious, somehow, like that they were owed for being, a nice, quote unquote, nice guy. And it all just kind of gets back to those same perceptions that we have, and kind of trying to change that mentality that it's not about being, the opposite of a nice guy isn't a bad guy, and the opposite of a nice guy and a bad guy are, an integrated man who is comfortable in his masculinity. He's confident and he's strong, and he has, friends. He goes out. I stopped hanging out with friends for years. I kind of cashed in all of my external relationships from my marriage. And
that's not good.
Extremely codependent. And
I would be the first person if I was in a relationship. I would be the first person to like kick him out, be like, go grab a beer and shoot some pool. Because I'm somebody who has really fallen in love with like personal time to myself.
That's awesome.
And I work from home a lot, so like, I don't know, even when I am home, I'm not like home, I'm at work. So like there's a difference for me. Like I could be home all day and feel like I haven't been home. Like I'm not home relaxing, with a face mask. So, like I'm one of those people that I'm like the first one to like, okay, see you later. Like I want to hang out with myself. But yeah, I've seen a lot of relationships, and a lot of my friends go through the struggle of kind of isolating themselves within a relationship, and it never works out for the better.
And it doesn't. I mean, that comes back down to like boundaries and self-care. Like you need your own personal space, and a lot of people really fight against that idea, that somehow if you're spending time away from your family, you're doing something wrong. I felt guilt when I wanted to go out and do something for myself, and that's not good. So I think I really applaud you for that, and definitely encouraging people to get out. I definitely recommend checking that book out, because it explains a little bit about why men specifically need other men in their life, and how to build, healthy masculine perceptions and friendships. That way they can in turn be happier, healthier people. There's so many things out there that are telling us to be one way. We kind of touched on a little bit at the beginning, but things are complicated. Whenever you think you're doing like one thing right, I don't know if you're familiar with the show, The Good Place.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely love it. But one of the big things they got in there is life just got so complicated. There was no, like, an example I used yesterday with somebody is just like, I have been trying to use more natural products. So I want to use natural deodorant, for example, but it comes in a plastic container.
Oh,
so it's like, so you try to do one thing that's right, and then in turn you're doing like 7 other things. Like, well, who made that plastic container? Was it made, from other renewable products, or was it,
especially now in the world of social media and online trolls, even if you try to do, one thing right, there's going to be so many people out there pointing out the 20 things you did wrong.
it's never ending. And I think that we take a lot of that into our relationships. And so we cover things up, we hide things, we have to think that everything's got to be perfect. And that's another huge part of my message and my journey over the last few months is perfect. The definition for me is completely changed. It's not about not having faults. It's not about everything being all sunshine and rainbows all the time. But it's about doing the best you can with what you know now. And kind of,
That sounds like a pretty good definition
and
to
so
me.
it's there's another quote that I had shared from Maya Angelou that was, when you know better, you do better. And that kind of goes hand in hand. It's, everybody thinks that you need to be faultless and that somehow you need to give off the perception that everything's okay. That's why we hide it, that we're going to pass out when we're on an airplane or meeting with other people. We aren't okay with not being okay. We all think we have to put on this facade of perfection, when in reality we're all just trying to learn as we go. Everybody's at different stages. The lessons I learned during my life are in the same lesson somebody else might learn in 10 years. So it's just kind of that, everyone's trying. Nobody wants to, have an awful life. We all just learn.
That's true.
Learn at different stages, and we all learn in different ways. And, it's our own thing to kind of control our own kind of little bubble. And when we learn something new, try to make that change. Trying to use more natural products in our house, like practicing yoga for 5 minutes, exercising a little bit more. It doesn't have to be all at once. You don't need to spend $1,000 on some new fitness program. You don't need to change your diet drastically, and we think we need to make these massive changes all of a sudden. But it's really just, a few things. Like, be gentle with yourself. Do 5 minutes a day of something that improves your life. And over time it will make, the difference. But we definitely get caught up in perfection and then thinking that we need, that microwave culture of, I need it now.
Oh yeah. The instant, satisfaction.
Yeah, like I want to do this thing because I'm going to look better in a week. Or I need to do this thing because it'll make me more money, but then nobody really wants to stick to the grind. Nobody wants to, it's hard.
New year, new wine. And of course, I'm talking nakedwines.com. If you haven't tasted the delicious, independently crafted wines from boutique winemakers around the world, can you even call yourself a fellow wine mom? Debatable. But don't worry, I got you, girl. Use code MOMMYWINES50 or click the link in the show notes below to receive your first 6 bottles delivered right to your door for only $34.99. That's $34.99 for 6 bottles of wine delivered to your door with code MOMMYWINES50. You're welcome.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this conversation because there's a woman I've had on my podcast a few times now. Her name is Maya, and she has the Instagram profile Baby Steps
That's
for
awesome.
Big Results. And she's here in Salt Lake. And you guys seem to have a very similar kind of mindset, but it's been very interesting to get like the male perspective, which is something I don't often have on my show, which I would love
Yeah,
more
no,
of.
thank you. I feel
But
honored.
you're the first
I feel
dad.
honored. As a parent,
I'll send you like a little #1 dad mug because you're the first
thank
dad
you.
of the show.
I feel honored to kind of be the voice for some men and for some dads. I love my kids and I want them to have the healthiest, happiest dad they can get. And I finally feel like I'm kind of on that path. And so hopefully I can share that with others along the way.
Yeah, I think that's really honorable because there's so many people out there, and this is something I've struggled with so much in my co-parenting situation, is that there's a lot of times people just don't care. And there was such a switch in my mind when I went from being this single, not mom woman to then becoming a mom. Like, I just wanted to do better. I wanted to be better. I wanted to just do everything I possibly could better. And my son is the inspiration and motivation behind everything that I do, from waking up in the morning to, working and having the goals that I have. But there's so many people, and I feel like it's kind of can resonate with dads, is, it sometimes, from my experience, it can be like, well, I'm not the mom, or, like, I don't have to, do that. I'm, a dad. And I think there's so many different things that are moving in a more modern direction. Even though I am a more traditional person, I think both parties need to be good parents and both parties need to be happy and healthy. And I think like mental health is not a sexist thing. It doesn't only affect women and it doesn't only affect men. It affects everyone. And it's a muscle, in my opinion, it's a muscle just like a bicep or a glute or anything else that people want to work out on a daily basis. I think it needs and deserves the same
I agree with you. And
attention.
it's something that we pay attention to, like, seemingly last. I know that there's a lot out in the world, different things with gender roles, or what a dad thinks he should be like, or what a man thinks he should be like, or what a mom thinks he should be like. And it's hard to find out, where the balance is, and what ultimately works in someone's relationship. There's a lot of information out there, and it's hard to figure out what's right. And
That is true.
I know that
I never.
No, you're
sorry,
fine.
go ahead.
I just know that there's a lot of, I can't say that I haven't had a lot of false perceptions of what I thought, a relationship should be like, or what a man should be doing, what his role is in the household. And it's definitely been a kind of point of contention, from my own relationship. But I think, having had all this time to reflect and thinking about, everything that's happened over the last few years for me, is it has to be part of the conversation. There has to be boundaries and expectations, in the relationship. I guess one of the key things to that is something that book number Mr. Nice Guy calls covert contracts. And we're all operating with these perceptions in our head about what everybody else is supposed to be doing, but it's always for a trade. It's, I do this, this, and this, and you do this, this, and this, but I'm not going to mention it because you should just know what my perceptions are, almost. And
Yeah.
it gets us into a lot of trouble in our everyday lives and our relationships, because we don't set those boundaries. We don't take the time to have those conversations. And again, it also kind of comes down to, those boundaries might be okay with one person, but not with another. And
Yeah. I think just communication in everything
yeah,
in life, at work, in your friendships, in your personal relationships, in your parenting relationships, just communication. If people just had more conversations and said more of what they were maybe thinking or feeling, or, like you said, setting those boundaries, just
yeah, it would be
imagine.
incredible.
Like, I look at my own, oh
I'm a
my God,
horrible
right? Like, I look
communicator.
at my own my own co-parenting situation. And there are some days I just sit on my couch when my son is like visiting his dad. And I am like, just imagine how different things would be if we could just have an honest, open
Yeah.
conversation. Like, I like sit there and I like daydream about it. Like it's some crazy wild thing. Like, oh, I want a unicorn for my birthday. No, it's just a conversation. Like that's what I daydream about. Like it's some mythical thing that's like so unrealistic or unattainable. But it's just communication is so important.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it's like I said earlier, it's not a shock when people say, "Oh yeah, better communication would make things easier," or taking better care of yourself would mean you'll have more energy, or having a budget means that you'll handle your money better. Like it's not a shock. It's like it's not like this comes as a surprise to anybody, and it's all of the learning that I've done over the last few months. It's not. I loosely say the word common sense.
It's the one thing that's not so
But
common. It's what my grandpa used to say.
Incredible that it's like, oh yeah, I knew all of these things. It's not like any of this was a surprise to me. It's not like I didn't recognize all these different things, but it was hard to put it into context, and really it takes some serious work to put it into practice. And it's just another solid word for you, I guess 2 words, is cognitive dissonance. I don't know if you're familiar with the term.
I am
So,
not.
cognitive dissonance, it's a great one. It explains so much about our current state of the world, from politics to relationships to, kind of capturing everything we've been talking about. We all run around with these perceptions or these stories that we are supposed to, live or do. And what cognitive dissonance is when something challenges that perception that you've been living in, like your mind rejects it like as hard as it possibly can, even though it's the truth. Like you cannot come to terms with it. Like it just doesn't click because you've built up this, things are supposed to be this way. I think this is just how things are. And so when anything kind of challenges your way of thinking, people fight against it 10 times harder. They can't agree with you because that would go against everything that they are. And that's kind of why I think
That makes sense.
those big moments where you collapse on an airplane or you pass out, in somebody's driveway, or you have a death scare or something, shocks you into, wow, it all just needs to change now. it's really hard to kind of like shock yourself out of that perception into thinking a different way and recognizing the way you were thinking wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
And so that's my word now, cognitive dissonance.
So, you all have heard me talk about Real Good Foods before. If you follow me on Instagram, and if you don't, you definitely should, you'll have seen Milo devouring the Real Good Foods pizza. Well, my favorite frozen food company is now launching ice cream. Real good ice cream. No icy or chalky texture like other light ice creams. It's made with fresh milk and cream, giving it that smooth, creamy goodness we all love. On a sweet note, there's only 4 grams of sugar. The new Real Good ice creams are sweetened with allulose, a naturally occurring sweetener found in things like figs and dates. This rare sugar has 1/10 of the calories of typical cane sugars, leaving this guilt-free frozen treat with a low 180 calories per serving. You can find this Real Good ice cream online at Real Good Foods and Vitamin Shop. So, on my podcast, we normally have a confession.
Okay.
But I feel like this whole episode has been a confession. So, I'm going to switch it up. I'm just, throwing the whole outline of my podcast away today. And instead of sharing a funny or embarrassing or confessional story from your past, since you've been sharing so much like on social media and you've started this new journey in your life, what is something that you're kind of maybe looking forward to or a goal you have for the future?
A goal I have for the future. One of the things that's kind of been a lofty goal in the back of my mind, because it's a complete opposite way that I've been living, is I want to qualify for the CrossFit Games before I'm 32.
CrossFit is very
it is
intense.
a lofty and ambitious goal, to say the least. We'll see how this goes. I'm 27, so I got a little bit of time to make it happen. But and here's one more kind of like at the end of why this is my goal is I had this. One of the reasons why I stopped taking care of myself, and this is to no fault on Jennifer's fault, but she doesn't find strong masculine qualities attractive, right? So like muscles like make her want to throw up.
That's kind of funny that she would marry a guy in the
she
in
told
the military.
herself that she would never marry a guy in the military. I'm sure you understand a little bit, and I hope this doesn't, offend any of your listeners, that she told herself that she'd never marry anybody who had an LDS family. My family's LDS.
Yeah.
I am not, and so
she's just breaking all the
she went
rules.
to Weber State actually, and so she had a lot of feelings about boys that she dated out there. And so a lot of these things were just like she was so against in her head that I, particularly like the fitness side, is like, I didn't want to be disgusting to my wife, right? I don't think that it was intentional on her part to make me think that me being healthy was a bad thing. But I let myself think that, if I were fit, if I were to have a 6-pack, somehow that would be repulsive to her. Right. Which isn't healthy on my part.
No.
So I stopped working out for such a long time. I played rugby. I ran cross country and track in high school. Like, I loved athletics. Being in the military, like, I worked out all the time. And so,
yeah, it's one of the
yeah.
requirements.
And so
I would
it
imagine.
was something that I stopped doing. And it's not because she told me to. It's not because of whatever, but somehow I kind of thought, okay, she doesn't want a fit guy because that's somehow repulsive. And so that's kind of one of the things that I used to love before was, taking care of myself and being fit and feeling good about myself. And I've made a lot of progress over the last few months in that aspect. And I decided to set a major 180 goal from that idea that taking care of myself was a bad thing, to I want to do one of the most outrageous things you can do, and just kind of go for it. I know that was kind of a long explanation of the goal, but I think that kind of gets again to the root of what we've been talking about.
No, I think it's good. If you're going to be on American Ninja Warrior, definitely let me know because my son loves that show.
I've been watching, American Ninja Warrior and then stuff about the CrossFit Games, and I'm like, you know what? Why can't I do that? Like, I should totally go and do that. So we'll see if
sure. It's very entertaining to watch.
We'll see if my face ever makes it on TV. So it should be exciting. But probably not.
Definitely.
I just want to also give a shout out to this, bottle of wine I've been downing while we've been talking because, in the spirit of the Mommy Minds podcast.
I know. I've been drinking this new red. I've been trying to, expand my palate and start getting more into reds. And it is the best red I've ever had in my entire life. It's so good. It's, let me get the bottle. It was actually under $15 and it's Rosatello, a product of Italy, a refreshing red blend from Italian vineyards.
We'll definitely check that out. I've always been kind of a red person.
I'll take a picture.
Always been kind of a red person, and it's pretty much the only alcohol I drink anymore. So,
well, that's good. They say it's healthy for you, so
I hope so. And even if it's not, I'm not going to stop. So, no, I really appreciate you having me on the show. It's been really good to kind of talk, and that's the big thing for me over the last few months. The kind of the difference it's made is talking about everything, letting it all out. Be vulnerable. Don't hold it all in. You don't need to. Nobody's gonna look at you any differently. The world wants you to be happy.
That is true. And I think especially now, I had a woman on, I did a recording yesterday, and she was like, I'm just excited to have an adult conversation because she's been, in her house, quarantined with her kids, social distancing. And she's like, I'm going a little crazy over here. But I think conversations anytime, not just now, but anytime I get to look at a new perspective on something, I'm very interested.
I really appreciate it. I mean, my kids left a few weeks ago, and so quarantine has been by myself in the house.
Oh, and so
no! It's too quiet. You don't have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old leave the house, and then you don't panic a little bit because there's no noise. So.
I know. You're probably like, I sleep terribly when my son is visiting his dad. I think it's just because the house is just too quiet.
Yeah. And thank goodness for FaceTime.
Like, I have so much more space.
And thank goodness for FaceTime.
Well,
and messengers.
Yeah. That's one thing about modern day life that's helpful.
My kids love, like, I love talking to them every day. It's incredible to me how smart kids are with technology. Like yesterday, my daughter was talking to me on Facebook Messenger. She's 3 years old, but she was having a great conversation with me. She sat me on the couch next to her to watch TV with her.
Aww.
She's always interacted with people over, phones, with family always living so far away. That's just totally a normal thing for her, and it's
Yeah.
pretty awesome to have that connection still and be able to talk to them. And I'm just really grateful for technology during this time. So
I bet. Well, good
yeah,
luck on
thank
your
you.
move. I think you mentioned that you're also moving back from coast to
Yes, I'm
coast.
going
And
from Virginia back to California in a few months so I can live near my kids. So crossing my fingers, I got to pack up this whole house by myself. It should be an adventure.
Are you a coffee lover just like me? Sipping my morning Java is the only way I can keep up with my toddler and busy lifestyle. That's why I love Coffee Over Cardio. Coffee Over Cardio is a premium coffee company started by female entrepreneur Abby Scott. Whether you love a good flavored blend or a strong roast, Coffee Over Cardio is ideal for any jitterbug. They are also carb-free, keto-friendly, sugar-free, and gluten-free. So pretty much that means they're completely guilt-free. Try Coffee Over Cardio's most popular flavors today: French toast and new Doctor's Orders vanilla hazelnut. Yum! Make sure to use code 10EMADON to save at checkout. Once again, that's 10EMADON at coffeeovercardio.com.
well, go ahead and share with everyone where they can find you online and follow
Yes,
along.
absolutely. So it is at fatherhood.wellness.journey on Instagram. I would love, to continue sharing my message with not just dads. Page not just for dads. It's if anything like this podcast is, just to get another perception, another perspective on what everybody else is going through. And I'm really excited about, sharing my experience with others. So
Definitely. Well, I've enjoyed it. I'm sure everybody listening will too. And I'd love to have you back on the show. So definitely reach out whenever you're settled in, and if you want to come
I
back
would love
on,
to.
you're
It'd be a
more
nice
than welcome. And
update, once I get back out to California and get everything kind of straightened out. See where I'm progressing
for
towards the
sure.
CrossFit Games. So
Well, don't hurt yourself, carrying a tire around or dragging a semi truck from
I'll try not
point
to.
A to point B. Well, good luck with everything. It was great having you on the show today. And I'll definitely keep you updated on when the show releases.
I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Mommy Wines Podcast. Make sure to leave a rating and review. To support the show you love, check out the exclusive branded merchandise on themommywines.com. For extra sassy, honest, and potentially controversial content, make sure to join me over on the Mommy Wines Patreon. Also, don't forget to check out the other shows on the MW Network. If you love scary stories and true crime, you'll love Tales After Dark. More shows are coming soon, so make sure to stay connected on social at Mommy Wines Podcast. And until next Wine Wednesday, mamas, parent and drink responsibly.